it doesn't really matter what somebody claims the purpose is of whatever particular war they're trying to fight, whether it's resources or religion or, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because it is essentially unnecessary. Wars are started by people who do not know how to communicate, who do not understand what it means to love, who do not understand communication, who do not understand compassion. It's all the same. It doesn't really matter what it's about. You can say it's about resources, it's about this, that, or the other. We are a big, beautiful planet, and we have the resources and technology to take care of each other and every single living being, human and otherwise, on this planet, and to create resources for ourselves and to live an abundant life, all of us. We just lack the leadership, and the leadership with the capacity to have compassion and the things I listed, in order to do that. We lack the capacity to do that as a society. So if we're fighting over land, if we're fighting over resources, if we're fighting over peace, it really doesn't matter. What does matter is starting to recognize how unnecessary war is, how unnecessary killing is, how unnecessary some deaths really are. And it becomes this game, I think, that some people feel like they have to play, some leaders feel they have to play to, again, maybe not again, I was just talking about this in another voice note, but to assert their dominance, right? To prove how much power they have. I think in recent time, I think that's what it's about. It's not necessarily about anything else except showing that dominance. And if you listen to the voice note about porn, you'll know why I think about needing to assert dominance, but that's a whole nother topic. But it's so unnecessary. It's so unnecessary, and it what could really help us ensure that no other wars are ever taking place on this planet is to elect leaders who do not see it as an option. Because if every single leader of every single nation in every single corner of the planet believed that war is not an option, we force ourselves to find another way. And then the resources that we commit to things that war needs become freed up, and we use them for, like I said at the beginning, we use them for the things that we could create to create balance and to create abundance and provide each other with the resources that we need. It's unnecessary, and I know I've said that many times already, but I don't really understand it because it, like I said, it doesn't matter which reasoning you're giving. If you look back at the needlessness of wars in history, you start to see this pattern of individuals playing with other individuals' lives. And it becomes more of a game and less of a necessity, which is why I repeated that it's unnecessary multiple times. And so as we start to question whether or not we're going into another war, or what that might look like, or whether or not we're already in it, we have to consider who we're letting make these decisions and why we're letting them make these decisions. and what pedestal they stand on when they're making it. Because it is very easy to give resources away that are not yours. It's very easy to give lives away that are not yours. It's very easy to start wars that you don't have to fight in. And when I think about who pays for those wars, not just with money, but with their lives, it becomes, that's a whole nother topic, because it now becomes these people who feel like they have to stand up for liberty and justice for all, without understanding that liberty and justice it can exist without war. It can exist without needing to fight for it in that way. So to me, it's a game. And you lack, if you're somebody who is leading these wars and wanting to seeing fighting and seeing death as the only option, all that tells me is you lack love, not just for other people, but for yourself. You do not know how to exist without it, or with it, really, because you don't know how to solve your problems without fighting about it. It's almost like watching a kid who doesn't know how to handle their emotions, so they get angry and frustrated because they don't know how to verbalize that they're angry and frustrated. But we're talking about leaders of nations here. We're talking about adults. But aside from the passage of time, we're all kids. We're all kids, and some of us are healed and some of us are unhealed, and some of us need more healing, and there is a lot of work to do in that realm. But I'm somebody who believes that you act in fear or love all the time, abundance or scarcity all the time, and your actions dictate what side of the spectrum you're on when it comes to those two. Are you making decisions with love? Are you making it with ease? Are you making it with abundance? Or are you just afraid? And war, the need to fight, the need to pay with lives, with blood, that's not love at all. That's fear. And you're not afraid of losing resources. You're afraid of it depends on who we're talking about, but it's just this fear of seeming weak and of needing to prove your power. And that's an internal thing that person is now using the world to try to exhibit. And it's unfortunate because, at the end of the day, we're not individually as individuals, but as countries and as citizens, we're allowing it and we're signing up for it. And like I said at the beginning, it's unnecessary. And it just makes me sad because we don't have to live this way. We can decide right now, nobody has to fight anymore. Nobody has to die in a war anymore. Nobody has to own a bomb anymore. Nobody has to own a gun anymore. We can determine and create our own safety. We can create our own resources. We can work together. We can create community. We can do the things that we need to do to live on this planet together and to mind our own business, to live on our own, to not need to have everything exist just for one person in order to be happy. We can decide all these things, but we don't, for some reason. The reason is, I'm another firm believer of the way we solve the problems of the world. People talk about how do we solve homelessness, how do we solve these mass shootings, how do we solve this, that, and the other. In my opinion, the way you solve every single, in quotations, problem of the world is first and foremost to show people how to love themselves, to teach them how to love themselves. Because the direct consequence or the direct effect of loving yourself, of learning to love yourself, is that you learn to love other people too. And when you love yourself and you love other people, war isn't an option. It doesn't have to be like we're holding hands and we're BFFs, but the needlessness of it all is no longer an option. And we learn to communicate, we learn to have empathy, we learn to compromise even would be great. But that's my take on it, is like every single thing can be solved by learning to have, because everything is a self-worth issue. Everything is, in my opinion, again, everything is a self-worth issue. So if you can be so secure in your self-worthiness that you love, and I mean love as in like unconditionally accept all the things that you think you hate about yourself, all the shitty things that you've done, but still love yourself, the direct effect is that you love everybody else, because your brain changes. You no longer look at it as you're breaking down every single thing and trying to figure out how somebody is shitty. Your brain changes and you learn to see those shitty actions with compassion. And this doesn't make them right, but you learn to see them in a different way for yourself, and then that trains you on how to see the same thing for other people, and it becomes this domino effect. But that's, again, another topic. We're talking about war here, and I guess the final thing I want to say is, like, repeating myself again, it's unnecessary. And if we want to think about it from a energetic standpoint, it's about learning to love yourself and truly learning to understand what you are in this world, and how you can create and how you can exist and be just as you are, and still learn to love and have compassion for everything you've been through, everything you've done, everyone that's hurt you, and all the other bullshit you want to talk about, or not, and keep bringing up, I guess, is kind of how I'll say that. And then the more tangible way is, we can vote people who know how to do that. It's a skill set. So, not everybody knows how to love. Not everybody knows what compassion is. Not everybody has empathy. But if we're looking for a tangible way, let's, if we're trying to end war, we need to vote for people who don't see it as an option. And there's this quote from this show that I like. It's called The Wheel of Time. And one of the characters said something like, if we want all the violence in the world to stop, everyone has to stop. If we want the killing in the world to stop, everyone has to stop killing. Like, you just have to stop. And it sounds like this silly, obvious thing, but if it were that obvious, where actually would we be?